Initially, we'd like to recognize and thank the people who played a special part in making this evening tonight possible. I will ask you to please hold your applause until the end, at which time we'll have all those appearing on the slides stand to be thanked and applauded. So first up are the distinguished dinner co-chairs whose efforts were immeasurable. We would also like to recognize and greet our mayor, the Honorable V. Lyles, for being here today. Thank you, V, for being here. Hold your applause. We'll have it at the end, but thank you. Thank you, Mayor Lyles. Of course, the World Affairs Council's board was instrumental in this ardent undertaking. Thank you to the board of the World Affairs Council, especially to Wayne Cooper, our long-standing chair of the board, and to Wayne's successor in the wings, July 1st, Chair-elect Raj Bharadwaj. The dinner committee, they worked diligently for months to make connections and assist in planning and logistics. Special thanks, there are always a group of people that makes the magic happen by laboring at every detail and aspect of this evening. They are listed on this slide and are very much appreciated. Let me just single out Erica Duncan and Rena Arlene from Bank of America. A very special thank you and kudos to you both. Thank you for your dedication and effort. You made the World Citizen Award Dinner 2022 come to life. I would also like to single out and thank my team at the Council, Charlotte Klopp, Noah Amaris, and Madison Neesmith. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your hard work. You are the best. Thank you so very much. So let's give them all a big round of applause. We have with us, and I'm so proud and thrilled, a special additional recognition. We're most honored, as I said, and pleased to have with us tonight 5 prior recipients of the World Citizen Award. One of whom, Hugh McCall Jr., received this award exactly 20 years ago. Hugh McCall Jr., thank you. Francis and Lily Robichek, Michael Tarwater, Pat Rogers, and Derek Regovan. Let's recognize them with a big round of applause. Significant thanks also goes to our generous sponsors for their support of the World Affairs Council and today's dinner. They were featured on the screen earlier in the evening, and they are in your printed program. When you see representatives of these companies, please tell them that you saw their company name here and that we collectively appreciate their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Lubomir. And so let's talk briefly about the World Affairs Council of Charlotte. We're about 2 things: education and dialogue, all in the context of world affairs, a catalyst for global thinking, if you will. As a community and as individuals, it's vital that we be better informed about world issues, history, culture, and global relationships, essentially how we relate to each other on the planet. The unique feature about the World Affairs Council is that we actually talk with each other about these issues. That's the dialogue piece. It's one thing to follow the 24/7 news scrum, but quite another to engage in constructive discussions with interesting and knowledgeable friends and neighbors. That's what we do. And, you know, it's still all about people. We do what we do, and we carry out our mission at the student, the teacher, and the community levels. At the student level, we connect regularly with high school and college students all across the region through on-site campus programming throughout the year, having students attend our community lunch programs with faculty in tow, all free of charge, to hear speakers of import, and annual events like WorldQuest, which is a program started here at the Charlotte Council and is an international knowledge contest for the high school students. The winning team goes to D.C. It's now become national. So at the teacher level, we're a professional resource, a development resource. And we provide support for teachers through the Council Scholar Awards, which we'll be presenting in a few minutes. And as I suspect most of us know, without great teachers, there's no optimal learning. Equally important, at the community level, our Charlotte Council presents top-notch educational programs on international topics like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, gatherings all over the city and on a regular basis. The community programs feature ambassadors, other visiting dignitaries, national and world business leaders, prominent authors, policymakers of all stripes. The speakers that come to Charlotte through the World Affairs Council, they know from experience, and the DC Grapevine also knows that the World Affairs Council of Charlotte is a place where interesting and knowledgeable people congregate, and where thoughtful perspectives are encouraged and welcomed. In short, we believe we punch above our weight here. Information is in your materials about the impressive and prolific speaker programs that we have. I encourage you to look at that. Lubomir and his team really do punch above their weight in putting these on. As quick additional background, we have a very special relationship with UNC Charlotte. Our council was founded there by an initiative of Dr. Harold Josephson, a professor and international scholar. The council's offices are out on the campus, and we thank Chancellor Sharon Gaber and Joel Gallegos, the head of international programs at the university, for their genuine friendship and gracious support over the years. So the message to all of you is that we need you and your companies as active members of the World Affairs Council. We can't successfully promote global thinking without you. The coveted blue passports that you see on your tables, we had a couple ambassadors here the other day from DC, and they grabbed those and they said, "Wait, we got an extra passport we're taking back with us." It's a big hit with folks like that. But that, along with, there's a QR code in your program at page 54, and maybe one hanging around your table. Through those, you can help support us, you can join us as members, or just leave information with Lubomir or any of our board or staff, and we'll follow up. So with that, back to you, Lubomir. It's a little harder than back to you, Chet.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. I hope you all hear us well. We tested the system many, many times today. I'm hoping that it will get a little bit better. So for some perspective on how your World Affairs Council of Charlotte stacks up in the pantheon of 93 chapters, councils around the country in the U.S., we have with us a special guest from Washington, D.C., Bill Clifford. He is the president and CEO of the World Affairs Councils of America, and he will briefly talk to us about it. A couple of words about Bill. He has been the president and CEO of the World Affairs Councils of America since 2013. Before that, he ran the council in Boston from 2008, and before that, he was an international journalist, mostly based in Southeast Asia and Japan. Please join me in welcoming Bill Clifford.
Thank you so much, LJ. Madam Mayor, Chairman Hawley and Cooper, Mr. Brian Moynihan, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot tell you what a pleasure it is to be here wearing a tuxedo after all these years outside of DC and find that it still fits. And thank you, yes. And it's truly a joy to be in a basketball town. As a Boston fan, I have to ask you all to please join the Celtics bandwagon. Go Green! I know that you're already part of another bandwagon, which is the incredibly important work of this civic organization, the World Affairs Council of Charlotte. Now, the board and the staff and LJ and the members, after tonight anyway, are already thinking about the 40th anniversary next year. And my friend LJ, he has led this council for nearly 15 of those years, and at the WACC National Conference last November, we honored him with the 2021 Chairman's Leadership Award, our highest individual honor. We did that because the team at WACC Charlotte, as we call them, in the second year of the pandemic, really shined in a number of ways. First, they marshaled the financial and human resources to grow the council to the 7th largest by total revenue in the network of 90-plus councils nationwide, and that was a leap of many, many councils. So congratulations for that. Also by mastering the difficult transition to digital programming, expanding the array of distinguished speakers series, and also participating in World Affairs Councils of America, Engage America series, principally around, it turns out, alliances, as we're seeing today, an incredibly important aspect of international relations with the war in Ukraine. The council here in Charlotte led an incredible session with our Wunderbar Together program on transatlantic relations and democracy in Germany. And also this fall, we'll be hosting the Sasakawa Japan Foundation's The Alliance Working in America on U.S.-Japan Relations. So I look forward to that program. Finally, the sustaining effort to keep and grow the educational offerings to students and young professionals, as Mike Hawley mentioned, is so important. The council here has an array of programs: speakers in the classroom, young explorers essay contest, Euro Challenge, internships and international career panels. But I want to highlight most of all the Academic World Quest program, which delivered to DC in April the Charlotte County Day School champs for 2021. They competed nationally in DC. And this is the connection between local and national at the World Affairs Councils. If it had not been for Charlotte founding Academic World Quest, which they allowed us to scale across the country, we would not have an endowment in 2014 for this program, nor would we have received last year a $10 million endowment from the same funder, Carlos Alvarez of San Antonio, who believes totally in civic dialogue and educating young people, creating opportunities in the global mindset for future leaderships who will one day become world citizens just like Brian Moynihan. So I want to say thank you very much for the incredible work of WACC Charlotte. Thank you, Mike, and to all the board of directors and staff for a beautiful evening. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you again, Bill, and it's really important that we have exposure to Charlotte with folks like Bill. So, Bill, we appreciate you coming to visit. We also want to take this opportunity to thank one of the pillars of our council here in Charlotte, and that is Wayne Cooper. Wayne has been the chair of the World Affairs Council of Charlotte for more years than he or I can remember. And suffice it to say, Wayne is the longest-serving chair in the organization's history. And he, as I mentioned earlier, he's winding up his position this month. Wayne is a fixture in the international community. He's served for 42 years as Honorary Consul of Mexico to North Carolina. And of course, he's been and continues to be a most valuable contributor to our council. And he's a force for the expansion of Charlotte's global footprint, as the mayor well knows. So thank you, Wayne, for all that you and Judy have done, are doing, and will continue to do. And I know you've got just a couple quick, brief remarks. Let's give a big round of applause to Wayne Cooper.
Thank you very much. Generally, when Mike introduces me as the oldest rat in the barn is what it is after all this time. But thank you, Mike. Thank you, LJ. And, you know, it really, really is an honor and a privilege to stand here with all of you today, and especially our honored guest, Brian Moynihan. You know, when I came here from Mexico, I know I don't look Mexican, but 45 years ago, the international community was really welcoming and welcomed me to get me kind of off the ground to here. And I later had a honor of leading some of those international organizations, both statewide and local. But there's none of the organizations I've enjoyed being chair more than the World Affairs Council of Charlotte. I guarantee you, we got the best team and the best board of any group out there. You know, the chairman of the board of the World Affairs Council tops my list. The council is the most professionally run, effective, efficient nonprofit in Charlotte. And in fact, Charlotte was named one of the top World Affairs Councils in the nation. And as Mr. Clifford said, our own LJ was featured as the outstanding administrator of all of the councils in the entire United States. And we're very, very proud of what he's done. I guarantee you, thanks to LJ and the staff, not only has this council survived this past 2 years, but has actually grown. You know, the council has overcome many obstacles because of the COVID over the last 2 years, but we've overcome so many of the obstacles so well that I often tell LJ that he ought to develop a primer on how to deal with such critical challenges. I am proud to have been associated with the council board for the past 7 years through the most challenging, yet the most successful years of this organization's existence. And thank you to my fellow board members. We got the best board in town, and thank you to our CEO, LJ, and his very able team. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wayne. You can't see me now because I'm in the light, but I'm blushing. I did not expect such praise, but I really appreciate it. I do have a great board and a great team working with me, and it's a joint team effort, everything that we achieved, and it's great to work with Bill and the 93 other councils around the country. So now we're going to introduce to you the Charlotte area educators receiving grants this year from our Council Scholar program. Please have the teachers join me on stage, if you please. As our recipients come on the stage, some quick background. The program recognizes Charlotte area teachers who expand global awareness and international collaboration in their classrooms by employing tools and initiatives that enhance student learning and knowledge of the world. Education partners supporting these initiatives also include Bank of America, Atrium Health, Novant Health, and USC Charlotte. Thank you also so very, very much. The program itself is generously underwritten by the Margaret Gregg Bissell Teacher-Centered International Education Endowment. Margaret Bissell's targeted support for our K-2 teachers is transformational for their professional development and classroom dynamics. Teachers use their $3,500 grants to participate in international conferences, study abroad programs, language classes, and other eligible international education opportunities. They bring back to their classrooms new perspectives and insights on global education, enriching the classroom experience for their students. Over the years, these grants have enhanced the teaching of 145 scholars, teachers, representing over 75 schools in Mecklenburg, Union, Gaston, Iredell, and Cabarrus counties. It has increased teacher and student global literacy on critical issues impacting our communities, and it kept the Carolinas connected globally at grassroots levels. As noted by Nelson Mandela, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Indeed. I think you all agree that this year's recipients are impressive individuals and great representatives of our region. I will introduce them to you now, but please hold your applause till we introduce them collectively, and we'll do so and recognize at the end of the introductions. Leonardo Garcia is a school psychologist at Collinswood Language Academy. Leonardo plans to network with other school psychologists, learn from them, and develop additional skills in helping his students manage trauma and mental health challenges coming out of the pandemic. He will be attending the International School Psychology Association Conference in Belgium. Reagan Pacheco teaches French at Ranson IB Middle School. She will be traveling to the Maldives through a professional development program for teachers in partnership with the South Asia Institute at the University of Texas. Margaret Maurice is a music teacher at Hidden Valley Elementary School. She teaches music to students, and this summer she will be traveling to Australia to attend the Kodali Australia Conference. Lucy Smith is a college counselor at Charlotte Latin School, where she spends the majority of her time working with students preparing for admission into colleges. She'll be conducting site visits and college tours, learning from international admission officers at universities in the United Kingdom. Spencer Swindler teaches at Mallard Creek High School. A longtime academic world-class coach, he teaches AP classes in Human Geography, U.S. History, and American History 1. As a veteran teacher, he wants to challenge his students to expand their worldview and be global citizens. He intends to travel to Brussels through the University of Pittsburgh's European Studies Center. Kristen Layton teaches students at Hickory Ridge Elementary School. She will be going to Ecuador for a Spanish language immersion program to advance her foreign language skills. Rebecca Stahl teaches German at Nord Academy of World Languages. As part of her professional development, she will be taking upper-level German classes at the Goethe Institute in Berlin, Germany. Sarah Case is a South Academy of International Languages counselor working with 6th to 8th grade students. She will advance her Spanish language competency skills for a language immersion program in Mexico that combines cultural and educational components. Tempest Harrison teaches students at Hickory Ridge High School. She's a broadcast and social studies teacher. She focuses on events worldwide, real-time context, and their impact on the local community. This summer, she will travel to Portugal with other teachers for professional development opportunities, networking, and learning best practices to teach her students about expanding their lens of the world. Brian Harrison is a Hickory Ridge High School teacher who teaches economics and entrepreneurship. He will be traveling to Portugal covering educational and cultural components. As a first-time traveler abroad, Brian hopes to utilize his experience to instill the importance of a global perspective in his classroom. Paul Rivera is a teacher at Community House Middle School. He teaches Spanish. And as part of his ongoing professional development, he'll be participating in a dual master's degree in education at James Madison University at the University of Salamanca in Spain. Wendy Niesler is a librarian at Highland Mill Montessori Elementary School. As a school librarian, she encourages a love of learning through books and new media. This summer, she'll be traveling to South Africa. During the program, Wendy will be able to network with teachers, travel with her, and experience South African culture. Kenan Kerr is an English language art teacher at Whitewater Middle School, and he will be traveling to Berlin this summer as part of the Centropa Summer Academy. David Taylor teaches innovation and computer programming at Charlotte Latin School. In the spring of 2021, he traveled to Cape Verde to provide STEM teacher training and small group workshop for students while learning about their education systems and functions. And last but not least, Lois Edens teaches at Providence High School. She teaches agriculture and horticulture science. In the summer of 2021, Lois traveled to Kidron Valley School in Uganda to help their teachers in basic computer usage. in how to use technology to aid in teaching. These impressive teachers were bringing back experience to incorporate into their classrooms and school communities, and thank you all for supporting these great teachers that we have in our regions. Please join me in giving them a warm round of applause. Thank you so much. This was a little bit long, but I think it's impressive, and you should all learn about them. These are the future of our country, and they're teaching and educating the future, again, of our country. Now we come to the award section of our program, the presentation of the Harold Josephson Award. Let me give you some background on Harold Josephson. The award's namesake is the renowned UNC Charlotte professor who was instrumental in founding the World Affairs Council of Charlotte some 39 years ago. It's given to an individual who exemplifies the spirit of Professor Josephson, who has contributed significantly to the mission and goals of the World Affairs Council of Charlotte. To assist us, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Michael Marsicano, who really doesn't require introduction, given his decades-long pivotal role in community philanthropy in Charlotte and the region. So please welcome Michael, who will deliver some short remarks. Michael Marsicano.
Good evening. It is an honor to recognize my dear friend and colleague, Laura Meyer Wellman. A devotee of all things international, Laura is a champion for cultural exchange. In a world where sameness seems to have the upper hand, Laura thrives on the intellectual exploration of differences on a global scale. When you consider her vivacious personality and her boundless energy around building friendships, it comes as no surprise that Laura has never met a stranger anywhere in the world. Her passion for promoting mutual understanding has led Laura to a lifetime of learning experiences around the globe. Duke University would launch Laura on her international journey with double-degree majors in Russian and in French. She studied a semester abroad in Aix-en-Provence, France, when few American undergraduates did so. Internships overseas were equally as rare, yet the tenacious Laura secured one with an industrial leasing firm in Paris. Laura landed her first professional position in New York City as a trainee with Citibank in its Middle East and Africa divisions. She would become the lead private banker for the region with a focus on clients in Jordan, Lebanon, and Iran in particular. And the roots of her service to our local international-oriented nonprofits were planted years ago when her professional position segued to managing banking relationships with global nonprofits. She worked with large institutions such as the World Health Organization and the United Nations. As she progressed up the ranks at Citibank, Laura would end up leading relationships with community, company analysts, as well as international press and media. Eventually, Bank of America, then Nations Bank, recruited Laura from Citibank to serve as a lead consumer marketing director, this time on a national stage. And in this role, she would explore the cultural diversity of our multicultural USA. In Charlotte, Laura was able to activate her love for the arts as a language of universal understanding, joining the boards of the Opera and the Ballet Company. As a member and inevitably president of the Carolinas division of the Women's International Forum, Laura would lead one of 74 global chapters. Now, it was a very special day for our community when Laura accepted my invitation to join Foundation for the Carolinas as Executive Vice President, where I found her global perspectives enormously helpful in thinking about our work differently. With Laura in a leadership role, both the Foundation's assets and our professional team serving fundholders grew exponentially. Laura would become our first president and CEO of the one national program run by the foundation called E4E Relief. Our subsidiary serves corporate clients by making grants to their employees who find themselves in disaster and hardship circumstances. Many of these companies have employees worldwide, and it wasn't long before the E4 Relief found it necessary to make grants internationally. Laura would retire from the lead position at E4E Relief, having built a foundation now enabling us to serve 145 corporate clients and their 4 million team members all around the globe. This past year, we made grants to employees in 100 different countries, all facing disaster and hardship circumstances, including employees in war-torn Ukraine. More recently, as president of the Duke Alumni Association and thereby a member of the Duke University Board of Trustees, Laura led efforts to increase connectivity across the 160,000 alumni base, bringing more of these alums living or working abroad into the fold. Perhaps a pinnacle of her international journey was Laura's appointment as Honorary Consul of France for the Charlotte region. She served in this important position for 10 years. Just imagine the effervescent Laura Wellman wining and dining, visiting French ambassadors, multiple consul generals, and numerous embassy representatives in fluent French with her own very French flair. Overlapping her service as honorary consul, Laura also served on this venerable organization's board of directors, the World Affairs Council, where she has been critical to mission achievement. For all of these reasons and more, it is exceedingly fitting that we extend the 2022 Josephson Award to Laura Meyer Wellman.
And so we hereby present to Laura the 2022 Harold Josephson Award.
I get to look right at Brian Moynihan here, who will be up here for at least a dozen more pictures. So, Brian, if you want to have an event where you're going to get an award or recognition of some special kind, I recommend that a chairman and CEO of a major company get the lead award, because you can ensure 800 or more people in your presence. If you want to be introduced by anyone in this community, you have nowhere to look but to Michael Marzicano, and I got him first. So, Michael, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for that wonderful introduction. So, that's the free advice. I will share with you that my husband and I made Charlotte our home starting in 1995, coming from the New York area, long-standing New Yorkers. And the joke was, I used to go to Bali, and now I go to Raleigh. Well, guess what? I love this state. I love this community. And I remember having to look under the hood. I used to say, in Charlotte, you got to go down deep a level or two, maybe 3 or 4, to get to what is granular and exciting about this community. I see our Mayor Vi out there. I see Hugh McCall, and I know the force that made this no need to go a layer below. It's out here in this room now. We have here a group of special corporations and nonprofits and colleges and universities and government institutions and consultants and teachers, and people who are making this community great. But in effect, it's the individuals. It's not the institutions. And maybe you had to come tonight, but I'm hoping that this is the kind of function where what my brother-in-law refers to as the rubbing shoulders index will be high, and you will meet new people. If only shy of 20% of people in Charlotte are foreign-born, compare that to Toronto, which is at 50%. Well, our community used to be 8.2%. We are now bringing in people speaking far more languages than maybe our school system can handle, which means we need teachers like the ones that were brought to the fore tonight to actually get the awards, to go overseas, to go to countries, to bring back information, to bring a richness to our community that we need. None of us need to talk about what's going on in the world right now. But if we can inspire the youngest people in our community and those who teach them to be curious, to be thoughtful, to be interested in what is going on around them, we will have far less fear, and far more sense of confidence and courage. And so tonight, when I saw those teachers walk up, and my wonderful family and friend table definitely saw that as a highlight, I'm reminded of the fact that I may have some gold jewelry on tonight, but I was from a very humble background, very limited means in our family. My parents did not graduate from college, but I will tell you, education was number one. My dad took a third mortgage out on this little house on Long Island so that I could take French lessons and do things that kids did not have opportunities to do. I had little French notebooks. My parents didn't speak a foreign language, had never traveled overseas, but I was going to learn a language. They didn't care what the hell it was, just learn a language. And so, French became the language. A good friend of my mom's from years ago was a lead interpreter at the United Nations. He simultaneously translated 6 languages, Russian and French being his primary, but he could simultaneously translate between French, German, Spanish, Portuguese, Dutch. And I remember thinking, that's the key. That is cool. That's what is exciting. And I decided I'd try to get there. Never came close, but at least I understood the power of it. We all want for our own children the best that we had, more than we had. And I'm going to say that my 2 kids are no exception, and they're both here tonight. They are global citizens. I can see them at any table around the world. Well, maybe my son would eat everything. My daughter might be a little pickier. But they are global people. They love networking with people from all around the world. They may not always speak the language, but they connect. They ask questions. They're curious. And it makes them somebody you want to sit next to at dinner. It makes them someone who wants to help people out of difficult situations. And I know, absent all of the professional and community activities that we have participated here in Charlotte, which, by the way, is one hell of a community in terms of pulling you in. I'm looking at you, Hugh. It is amazing what happened to me when I came to Bank of America in terms of what board do you want to serve on, where do you want to be. That level of engagement, bringing those up along the way, and the youngest people in this room being part of that now is going to be critical going forward. I have deep thanks to the organizations I've had a chance to work with. The World Affairs Council has become a special home for all things global in our community. But I will say my highest love goes to the fact that I have a family that thrived here and in some cases has chosen to make it home. And that's a function, I think, of you in this room and the welcoming nature of what goes on in this city, of which I am so proud. I want to thank LJ, Wayne, and the board of the World Affairs Council. This is an extraordinary group. I want to do a shout out to the International Women's Forum, of which some 7 or 8 of our members are here tonight. and some 7,000 women strong all around the world. And I want to thank the cultural organizations and the schools of which I've had the chance to be a part of here in this community. I want to thank my husband, because wherever I go, he is so supportive of everything I have ever done. Well, just about. Thank you, everyone, for being in this room tonight. To my great family, friends, and all of the people, I feel like I'm at a wedding and you see all the people that you haven't seen in a couple of years. And it has been a joy to get to connect with you all, and I hope I'll have that opportunity again later this evening. Deep thanks, Charlotte. Deep thanks, World Affairs Council. Bonsoir et santé.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Laura. So, on to the main event, the World Citizen Award, which is given annually, pandemics permitting, by the World Affairs Council to prominent citizens with Carolina ties who have distinguished themselves by accomplishments and achievements of international significance. Prior recipients are listed in your program, and I think you'll agree they represent outstanding internationally known individuals of whom our community is very proud. Folks such as Reverend Billy Graham, Dean Rusk, Elizabeth Dole, Erskine and Crandall Bowles, Jim Rogers, and the honorees attending tonight whom we've recognized. It's a distinguished and select group which will be in good company with this year's recipient, Brian Moynihan. You know, the selection of Brian was a natural. He's the quintessential world citizen. At the helm of a company of impressive global standing with its headquarters here in Charlotte. You know, it's often difficult to capture the impact of an individual as extraordinary as Brian, but we're going to do our best tonight to do that. And we're going to start with a video which will run right now.
Brian will not be the loudest voice in the room, but he will always be the strongest voice in the room.
What's interesting is to watch how intellectually curious he is.
And those are the people that really do the best at the end of the day, the people that are curious.
He's got a passionate leadership that is about getting things done.
Brian is next level leadership. He's well prepared for what he does, but never brings any arrogance into the job, and that allows us to bring other leaders along.
He is as approachable as he is knowledgeable.
Still true today is how authentic and self-aware he is.
Brian's such a great listener, but he's also a collaborator.
Brian obviously brings deep subject matter expertise, but he's also incredibly thoughtful.
One of the most important aspects of a leader is that they care about their people. And everything I've observed about Brian is he cares about his people. He's worked hard to make working conditions better.
The first thing that comes to mind that Brian has advanced is diversity and inclusion. Well before Brian was CEO, he was the leader of our Global Diversity and Inclusion Council.
Brian frequently talks about the genius of the and. We can do well for our shareholders and we can serve our communities. You know, I still recall a senior leader meeting when Brian was talking about our purpose, helping to make the financial lives of our clients better, but he was humanizing in a way that he wanted everyone to understand. This wasn't a saying. This was our obligation. This was our duty.
Responsible growth is a framework that Brian put in place and uses to measure the success of the company. And quite simply, what responsible growth means is that each and every day, with each and every transaction, we do it in a positive way and in an ethical way that impacts, the people that we serve.
I've had a chance to work closely with Brian through some pretty interesting times, the financial crisis, the most recent health crisis and pandemic. And steady is what comes across.
When he took over the bank in 2010, it was unbelievable. Literally hundreds of billions of dollars of bad mortgages, literally problems with the Fed and the control of the currency and anybody else that wanted to create a problem.
We were in a meeting, we were talking about all the problems that we were facing. And Brian sat back, quietly listening for a little bit, and finally stopped us and said, I think we've admired the problem long enough. It's time to fix it. And to me, that just embodies what Brian brings to the table as a leader.
Brian has made a lasting impression on this community, and we're really lucky to have him here in Charlotte.
Brian's greatest contribution from outside of Bank of America leadership standpoint has been his role in the CELC. When COVID hit, Brian realized that we had an opportunity as a group to come together and to really make a bigger difference in the Charlotte community in that time of crisis.
You know, as I think back and as we reflect on House Bill 2, him encouraging us to go down and fight a good fight to try and do the right thing on behalf of not only Charlotte, but for North Carolina.
Working alongside Brian on the Charlotte Executive Leadership Council, it became clear to me that he's a strong leader that leads with sensitivity and listens to all voices.
Brian and his team really came up with the idea of having 4 work streams to dive deep into areas like education, establishing healthy communities across Charlotte, working on workforce development, and also community engagement.
Brian's desire to help others and give back to the community is not only infectious, but it's also very impactful. Brian has grown the value of Bank of America through his leadership, and that value has had a direct impact on some of our community's most challenging issues.
And I've seen him lead not only from his own personal leadership, but the resources of B of A in a way that's made a real difference. On workforce development, he's been a champion of generations and Year Up, Road to Hire, all kinds of opportunities that have really created a pathway of economic mobility.
All the things that are critically important in moving Charlotte forward, Brian's led all of that with his team.
That North Star has always been clear for us, that we, as Bank of America, have an obligation, not just here in Charlotte, but really across the world for that matter. And he's demonstrated that global leadership, whether we're talking about AIDS, whether we're talking about clean water, or whether we're talking about just providing an opportunity for a young person.
He said Bank of America has an obligation to help address racial and economic inequality. I was probably more proud, proud to be associated with Bank of America, but proud of Brian and the leadership he showed, embracing a topic that a lot of people would say was controversial and that the bank, shouldn't be weighing in on.
He is really intentional and authentic about investing in relationships. He's engaging with everyone on the world stage, from the President of the United States to His Royal Highness Prince Charles. And then he makes time for the interns who are spending time with us every summer. After every town hall, he's out there greeting all of our colleagues, and he doesn't leave until the last one goes by.
Brian's always striving to be better, to be the best. And he leads in a way that brings other people, and you want to bring your best to the table too.
I have a tremendous amount of respect for Brian, not just as a CEO, but as a person he is.
And I've learned never to be surprised by his level of compassion.
We are very fortunate to have his leadership in our community. Congratulations, Brian.
Well, my only advice that I would give Brian today, if I had that opportunity, would be just keep doing what you're doing and keep doing it forever. We're proud of you. We're glad to have you in our city, and we can't think of anybody else that deserves this award more.
That was spectacular. And who better to round out perspectives about Brian than a man who knows well the shoes worn and the heavy load carried by Brian, Hugh McCall Jr. Both came from small towns and have handled many comparable professional challenges, as well as challenges arising out of places like the Marines and rugby scrums. What better affinities could we ask for? So please join me in welcoming to the podium Hugh McCall Jr.
Well, I've always hated to follow a really good speaker, and to follow a whole bunch of them is really more than I can handle. But I'm pleased tonight to be able to stand here to introduce really one of the most important men in the world, and certainly clearly the most important person in Charlotte. And I want to tell you a little bit about him as I see it. Now, we talked earlier, when the film did, about Brian came in 2010, I think, and he inherited roughly $150 billion worth of problems, maybe $200 billion, and he took us out of that. He was able to take the company and turn it around and make it a very profitable company in a very, very fine, organized, calm way. Now, everybody thought that was terrific, but we weren't sure what happens next. Could they go back on offense? Well, he knew what to do. He took charge of the company. He lifted it. He favored growth, but in an organized way, managed growth, and he's produced steady profits ever since he took the helm. Now, that would be important just for anybody to do that, but he's done many other things that really matter. He's provided national leadership during the pandemic. When things were really going bad, the Bank of America stepped in here in Charlotte, in cities all over the United States and across the world, and helped bring calmness to the markets and bring calmness to the country. And they put their money where their mouth was. Every time, it wasn't just talking, it was doing. And that's what I've really been impressed with about Brian, is he does what he says he's going to do, and he does more of it than he says. And I guess if I were trying to, thing that has impressed me the most recently is what he's done for his people. He's been a leader in raising the minimum wage, not only in the Bank of America, but in leading other companies to do the same thing. To see that people are paid a fair wage. And this has been very important. He's also broadened health care to the company, not only in care about their well-being of their families and all of that. And he's done such a good job with that I've been thinking about applying for a job there myself. Foul Furious let me go, so I'm looking for something else to do now. Anyway, I think that the thing that, if you look for things that we worried about when the Bank of America was changing leadership, we wondered, will this new man have the same interest in Charlotte that we have had in the past? Well, I'm happy to say that I don't know anybody that could have done more for Charlotte over the last decade than Brian has. He's put his money behind every good idea. He's been a leader in housing. He's been a leader in job creation, in training, in getting people ready for work. And he's provided his personal time here in Charlotte to lead all sorts of ventures. But most important, he's continued to lead the country, and he's very involved worldwide. I'd like to just mention a few of the things that he's involved in worldwide, because I think that none of us would have really known this. He's co-chair of His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales Sustainable Market Initiatives. He's chair of the World Economics Forum, the International Business Council. And he's a member of the Council for Inclusive Capitalism under His Holiness Pope Francis. That's just three of the things he's doing worldwide. Now, Brian is a capitalist. All you have to do is read about how much money he makes and you know he's a capitalist. But anyway, he's been a leader in trying to position the people in this country, the businesses in this country, of doing the right thing. And that's what we really should know about Brian, is he not only wants to do well, but he wants to do good. And he is putting the bank's money and power into making this a better place to live. And Brian, for that, we thank you very much. Now, I could spend a lot of time trying to tell you all the things he's done. But what I should say, and the most important thing I can say, is that I'm proud to say that he's running the company that I helped build. And nobody could do it better. And so I'm glad we're here honoring you tonight. Brian Moynihan.
Brian, we proudly present to you the 2022 World Affairs Council of Charlotte World Affairs Citizen of the Year Award. So thank you very much, and we're also making a contribution in your name to the Refugee Support Services Fund. So let's give a big round of applause to Brian.
All right, good evening, everyone. I accept this recognition tonight on behalf of the 200,000 teammates that I have the honor of leading every day, including Keith Cockrell and Christine, who are sitting with me, and our former colleague Andrea Smith, and our former new hire now, Hugh McCall. These teammates come to work every day to deliver for you, our customers and clients, deliver for our shareholders, deliver for each other, and deliver for our communities. I want to congratulate Laura on her well-deserved award. Congratulations to those Consul Scholars, and to see them go out and see the world and come back and bring it to students is terrific. Thank you to LJ, Mike, Holly, Wayne Cooper, Bill for joining us, and all of you at the World Affairs Council. Hugh received this award 30 years ago, and I think it's a fitting bookend that I receive it 30 years after Hugh did. And I accept this award, and part of what he said, which is something he had never said to me before, that he was honored that I would lead the company he helped build a number of years ago. So thank you, Hugh, for all your great leadership in Charlotte and all the great things you've done for this community. And it's an honor to share this award with you. Thank you. Hugh has been a great supporter of mine, and early on in my career as CEO, I went to see him, and he gave me some advice, and he looked at me and said, "You can do it," and that felt great. So thank you for your kind remarks and reminding me of all of those times long ago when I started, even though it's still painful and a little PTSD attached to it. But so let's step back. Here we are at the World Affairs Council dinner, and you heard all the colleagues before me speak of the global nature of this event. This community has a global mindset, and that's what makes it successful. That curiosity that Laura spoke to is critical to it. I've noticed that from 20 plus years ago when I first came here, when Bank of America bought the company I work for. What I thought I was going to do tonight is really pick up a little bit on what Hugh said, on some of the observations of what I think we need to do as a society to produce global progress, and how we've done that here in Charlotte. So in one of my roles, you talked about, I recently attended the World Economic Forum, which again, post-pandemic was held a little bit different time of year. Each year, the global leaders of the world and from the private sector and public sector gather in Davos, Switzerland, and address the issues of the day. So what happened at WEF this year? What happened at the World Economic Forum? Davos was obviously overshadowed in a very dramatic fashion by what was going on in Ukraine. There was palpable horror felt by the European community. The Europeans had watched somebody invade a European democracy that hadn't happened since World War II. We had Ukrainian representatives physically in Davos. The Ukrainian foreign minister, the finance minister, the Klitschko brothers, the famous boxers, and they all stood and elegantly made a simple case. We must stand behind them if we stand for democracy. It's that simple. And they're going to fight to the end to live up to the world's faith in them. Now, that obviously preoccupied the mindset of everyone there. But being Davos, we also had a debate about the right type of capitalism, as usual. We had additional discussions on globalization. Was it over post-COVID, as you talk about the dual track of the China-Russia sphere and the US sphere? We talked about climate change. We talked about the Sustainable Development Goals, the so-called SDGs. We talked about inflation. We talked about supply chains and many other issues. So how does one blend together this range of issues through a common framework? Globalization, climate, the war in Ukraine, supply chains, and the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Well, common to all these challenges is the role that a business community and a role capitalism plays in the world order. And the common theme is this: we, as a business community, have to deliver for our shareholders and for society. Why do we have to do both? Now, one could take a political view to this question. In fact, some in the business community are often accused of that. People on the left say we need to produce profits solely and not have our mind set to anything. People on one side, right side of the aisle, say we have to produce profits solely and have no other purpose. People on the other side of the aisle say you have to produce purpose only. This results in claims of things like woke capitalism or unbridled capitalist greed, depending on your political background. But no company needs to do this. No company needs to take a political view. No company needs to take a political view on producing for their shareholders and society. You could also go after this question from an intellectual discussion. We've had a great debate about the shareholder primacy theories of Milton Friedman versus the stakeholder capitalism started by Klaus Schwab 50 years ago in Davos at the World Economic Forum. The discussion of capitalism in its proper role also takes place in a lot of forums that I happen to be around. One of them, which is more interesting than others, is I've had the chance to answer the question under oath at both the House and Senate banking committees, a question, are you a capitalist? In front of the world, so to speak. I actually couldn't believe someone would ask me the answer. I have the honor of leading one of the biggest companies in the world and one of the best banks in the world. Our sole job at Bank of America is to translate capitalism for our clients and customers to their daily lives. So how could I not be a capitalist? But frankly, I don't think we need to argue as business people, philosophy, theory, as to why business needs to produce for shareholders in society. Those of you who know me, I'm a very pragmatic person. If you want good things to get done, livable wages, innovation, more jobs, progress on the environment, development that is fair to the world overall, and any other good thing, it will take the alignment of capitalism to achieve it. It will take the alignment of the business community to achieve those good things. So how's this born out of pragmatism? Well, at Bank of America, you know, about 5 years ago or so, we started a new advertising slogan. It was a simple question. What would you like the power to do? We ask that question of our clients and customers, and then we try to deliver on it. We're here to serve all of you, and if we do that well, we'll be successful if you're successful. So the thought occurred to me once, what if the world were asked that question? What would the world like the power to do? Well, in fact, many of you may know that the world actually asked themselves that question, in 2015. In 2015, under the United Nations auspices, 190 plus countries signed on to the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. They're across the pillars of planet, prosperity, principles of government, and people. So what does society want? What's the world want the power to do? They want sustainable development. They want growth and progress. They want society. This is what society wants from capitalism in the business community. But like all good things, it's expensive. $6 trillion a year to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. $2 trillion plus on the environmental part alone. So how do you pay for it? So there's possible mechanisms. First, charity could pay for it. Now, according to the National Philanthropic Trust, charitable giving in the U.S. reaches about $500 billion a year. It's marvelous. It's a marvelous thing. When you go worldwide, it looks like it might approach $1 trillion. And that charity is wonderful, and it's wonderful the things it do. This community in Charlotte is very good at charity, and you all know that. But think about it. That's $1 trillion against a $6 trillion a year request. Once you give away charity, it doesn't have a sustainability to it. It's gone. Just ask Michael Marsicano, who spent his life raising money, and how hard it is to go out there and do it every year. So what else could you pay for? You could often go to the charitable foundations. There's been a move afoot that we ought to empty all these great foundations, use all the money right now to implement change in the world. The foundations of the world have $1.5 trillion in them, according to the Kennedy School. If you empty them tomorrow, that get you through 1/4 of a year, and then you'd be out of money. So you can empty the foundations, you can take all the charity and put it all against the SDGs, and you still don't have enough money. So I get often asked, what about the World Development Bank and the World Bank and things like that, the multilateral development banks, the MDBs that they're so called? Well, the World Bank's balance sheet is $300 billion, more or less. Bank of America's is over $3 trillion. We're one bank. Bill Rogers is out there with another bank. There's many banks that are far bigger than the World Bank. So how about governments? Governments run big deficits. So where are they going to get the money to fund the SDGs of $6 trillion a year? Well, they could tax us more. That's effectively a transfer from the people who work for our company, from our shareholders, from our company itself, to the government to do the work. So that's not really sustainable. The governments don't have the money. The U.S. federal budget, which is the largest in the world by quite a bit, is about $4 trillion on an operating basis pre-pandemic. So if you took all that budget and spent it against nothing but the SDGs, you'd have 4 of the $6 trillion. But guess what? There's a few other things we spend that money on. Defense, education, Medicare and Medicaid, infrastructure, and many other things. So simply put, who has the money to do what the world wants us to do? Well, it's business. Companies do, investors do, and the capitalist system does. So think of Bank of America. Yes, we have a wonderful charitable capability. We give away $400 million per year in charity every single year. That is great. It's a testimony to the kind of company that Hugh built many years ago. We've contributed $44 million over the last 5 years in Charlotte alone. We're a top giver worldwide. But that pales in comparison to what we can bring if we aim our whole company at the task. We have $60 billion in our expense base on an annual basis. We have a $3.4 trillion balance sheet. We have $4 trillion in investment assets in Merrill Lynch and a private bank. We have $90 billion in revenue, and we have to make $100 million of pre-tax income a day to make our numbers. So we have a lot. So how do we deploy that? We deploy it by our $1 trillion financing for environmental change for all you customers and clients to make a just transition. That's over the next 10 years, and in fact, last year we did $250 billion, to give you a sense. We achieve it with our vendor practices, which every year spend $2 billion on minority and women-owned businesses. We do it every year with our $5 billion in low and moderate income housing support across the country. We did it with our minimum wage, starting at $45,000 a year for a kid from high school. We did it with our job creations for low and moderate income communities, 10,000 hires from those communities over the last, well, it was supposed to be 5 years, took us 3, and now we've made a commitment for 10,000 more. This is how Bank of America brings its entire system of resources to bear. Now, just broaden out. Imagine the entire expense base of every operating company in the world, the balance sheet of every one of the financial institutions, the investment assets of all the asset managers, all of them brought to bear on helping the world what it wants the power to do. As the famous saying goes, now you're talking some real money. But we just have to ensure that capitalism aligns to help society deliver on the SDGs. You take that money and that effort and couple it with the talent and innovation our companies have in them and back it with a profit-making model that sustains and continues in perpetuity, and that makes the $6 trillion seem small. Capitalism is not only the right system, it is in fact the only hope to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, what the world wants the power to do. Other systems of economics do not produce the perpetual motion machine that capitalism does. Look around the world today and you can see them fail. They don't have capital markets. They lost their innovators to the United States and other democratic capitalist nations. They suffer from government squeezing out the private sector, and they face inevitable decline. So capitalism is the only system that can do what the world wants. But the question is, how do you know if you're making progress? Well, we developed a set of metrics to align capitalism to what society wants. The International Business Council at the World Economic Forum looked around a number of years ago and said there's so many metrics out there, but nothing is simple and easy to understand. So what did we do? We went to the big 4 accounting firms. So Carmine, Bill, Bob, and got in a room, and they came up with a set of metrics. Metrics that show, and Puneet, he'll kill me, his colleagues are out there today, all got together, and the 4 big 4 accounting firms came up with a set of metrics that show progress. We have 200 companies committed to disclose those metrics on an annual basis. 70 of us already do. It's right there for people to look at. We've aligned capitalism. So there are many other ways capitalism is driving solutions. The private sector is accelerating. The International Business Council did what I just talked about, developed a set of metrics and committed to the SDGs. The Business Roundtable committed to profits and purpose in its statement in 2019. And capitalism had to serve clients, employees, suppliers, communities, and by doing so, delivers for its shareholders. As obvious as that might be, is sometimes understood. It's simply what I'm saying tonight. Capitalism can deliver. And there are many other examples. At the last year's COP26 climate conference in Glasgow, Scotland, the presence of private sector CEOs was greater than any other year. It was the first time that I ever attended. We were part of a CEO-led groups that were there to help deliver the private sector into the just transition. As Hugh mentioned, I have the pleasure of working with Prince Charles' Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, on the Sustainable Markets Initiative. 200 CEOs from public companies around the world across every industry, agriculture, aviation, fashion, private equity, energy, and others, all driving investments in clean energy faster than we'd otherwise do separately. His Royal Highness is also able to go. I was able this year to speak last July at the G7 in Cornwall, England, and the G20 in Rome. The only CEO that's ever been in a room with those world leaders. And what I told him was simply, we don't need your money, we just need a little support, and let capitalism take off and drive it. This type of business leadership is also what you saw referenced by Pat and others in the Charlotte Executive Leadership Council. It's the same thing. It's just done locally, and local's where this all happens. Affordable housing, as Fred spoke about, workforce development, education, equity, inclusion. These initiatives are the business community trying to help Charlotte solve what it wants the power to do. So think of the job development programs. You saw Rick up there talking about Road to Hire. It's the private sector jobs that make that program work. Rick designed a great program. Without the jobs, it wouldn't happen. Think about the Read Charlotte, and I saw a table from Read Charlotte back there. It's our employees volunteering that makes that happen. Think about the work that Bank of America is doing with Lynn Good's company and Duke Power, and how we're building a solar power plant to help reduce our energy usage. These companies, with those great leaders like Gene Woods and Mike Lamock and Tom Nelson and Lynn Good and Fred and others, are just great companies doing great things, and I'm inspired by their commitment and what they deliver every day. Recently, after the George Floyd killing, when the Mayor Lyles came and asked us to help, we figured out a way to help her in her initiatives. This is what we do in Charlotte. We bring business to the task, and then it can help deliver on what Charlotte needs the power to do. When I say capitalism is the right system, this isn't a plan for tomorrow. This happens every day by what we do in our companies, what these business leaders in this community do, and what these business leaders do around the world. It's how we run our companies, it's how we commit our balance sheet, how we drive our expense base, it's how we buy our goods and services, it's how we drive our net zero commitments. My friend Bono has said on many occasions, capitalism is amoral. It has no good, no bad. It's a system. And he says it must be tamed to help ensure that it provides a possible benefit to many that can. Aim right, serving shareholders, stakeholders, customers, teams, shareholders, and society, capitalism is tamed. It is aligned. It is inclusive. It can deliver for customers. It can deliver for shareholders. It can deliver for our team, and it can deliver for society. That is what we call at Bank of America delivering on the genius of the and. Profits and purpose, shareholder and society. That is stakeholder capitalism. That has driven the world's prosperity and growth. That is what is needed in the future to help the world do what it wants the power to do. And you can do both. It's not a false choice. Profits and purpose is possible, and that's what we've been doing at Bank of America. It isn't ESG, it isn't woke capitalism, it is capitalism done right. So I stand before you and I answer the question I got to answer in front of Congress on multiple occasions. I am a capitalist, and I hope you are too. I hope you all go home tonight and do something to deliver profits and purpose tonight, tomorrow, and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Congratulations again. And thanks to all of you for attending tonight and for celebrating this truly remarkable man. At the World Affairs Council, we're looking for curious people like Brian Moynihan. If you're one of those, come join us. I know you'll enjoy the ride. And as you drive home through the Uptown tonight, be looking at the tops of buildings. They'll all be sporting Bank of America colors. And with that, we'll say safe travels, good night, and we're adjourned. Thank you.